Hey everybody, welcome to Landscape Rescue. My name's Stuart Moore and I'm here at the Home Depot in Springfield, Missouri. Let's go do a plant shopping video. So one of the first plants that I want to talk about that can change your landscape right now is purple fountain grass. Now this is an annual in my zone, but on the tag it says perennial grass. Now it is a perennial grass, but it depends on what zone you're in. So let's think about this. It's good to 30 degrees. If you have had a winter that's below 30 degrees, your purple fountain grass is not going to survive. So it's a little misleading, and I don't necessarily like that they put that in there, but they're not lying. It is a perennial grass, but not in the vast majority of the zones. Zone 9 maybe? Probably, because it jumps up 10 degrees, where in zone 7 would be 0 to 10, zone 8, 10 to 20. So yeah, zone 9, 20 to 30, maybe, I don't know. Zone 9 people, help me out. This is most likely one of your favorite grasses because it is gorgeous. I love purple fountain grass, but in my zone, zone 6, here in Missouri, we can't grow it all year. We lose it in the winter. The winter ends up killing it. For $10.98, it's worth every penny. Yeah, it only gets about 3 by 3, maybe 4 feet in full sun in a very hospitable environment with all of his needs met. That would work pretty good. So that's purple fountain grass. Another plant that can enhance your landscape right now, I'm ready for the hate, is variegated Liriope. Now I know variegated Liriope has sort of a checkered past, right? Well, Liriope in general. And I think where the bad blood with Liriope mostly comes from is it comes from big blue Liriope. Now, this is pretty invasive. I think it's easier to control than people give it credit for. This is not a plant that you just fire and forget, unless you're cool with it taking over your beds, and you know, it's probably not even gonna do that unless you take care of stuff. I like to run a shovel down the border of big blue. I actually like big blue a little bit more. I like that color a little bit more than I do the variegated color. Sometimes it's hard to work that in with my design scheme, but I do use big blue Liriope, but I control it by keeping it in a tight foot line. Usually this is my first tier, right? So I'm bumped up against the sidewalk. I'll use my shovel to keep it to about a foot, and then I'll usually have something else growing behind it. That's Liriope, and that's a now thing. It is evergreen until it's time for it to start pushing new growth, and then the last year's growth will die down, the new growth will come up from the center. So I like to trim these early March. I'll just trim them down to nothing and then watch it grow up and do it again. If you don't trim it, it's gonna look nasty. I'm just telling you. The new stuff is going to be mixed in with the old stuff, and you're just going to have to wait for that old stuff to degrade to the point where you can go in there and pull it up. You know, it'll be loose and brittle enough. The main issue is your new shoots, you're going to be pulling those out too. I mean, it's a mess. So I just say run your weed eater or run your mower over it in March. Liriope, big blue and variegated. If you're not a fan of Liriope, if you just can't get that sour taste out of your mouth from that one time you lived at that rental house that just so happened to be a duplex and there was a bunch of big blue out there. So Japanese sedge, keep an eye out for something like this. It's a little wispier. It doesn't suffer from as many diseases as Liriope. There's a Liriope nematode that kind of goes through here every once in a while and just wipes out Liriope. A lot of contractors, a lot of designers are starting to move towards the variegated sedge. And there's native sedges too, you know, so you can look into those if you would like to do something like that. These are $12.98. I mean, pretty standard. This is kind of a thick, fat 1 gallon, where that Liriope we're talking about earlier is in a very thin, like a very thin pot. It's 2 quarts. It's 2 quarts, but it's $8.98. So a lot of you gardeners are already going to know about this, especially if you're in a landscape design. Now this is an annual. Hold on, I get it. This annual is called Alyssum, and I am such a big fan of Alyssum. It looks like this all year long. It just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Especially if you water it well and you give it the nutrients that it needs. So just remember, annuals are typically heavy feeders. And my suggestion, so this is $5.98 for a 6-pack of Alyssum, and Alyssum gives you a lot of bang for your buck, like most annuals do. This little 4-inch pot, a 1.5 pint, this little guy is $2. I do the little 606. That's what I'm kind of into. And I mean, $6 seems like a little much, but the sooner I can get them established, the sooner I can start getting them going, the bigger they get by the end of the year. Put it like this. This is from the guy's perspective. So 85% of my audience is not going to listen to this, but from the guy perspective, what does date night cost? So date night costs what? 120, 130 bucks, right? You're going to go to a movie, you're going to go get, oh, God forbid you have a drink while you're at the restaurant. You go to dinner, go to a movie, you're looking at about $130, right? Once you pay the babysitter, I mean, it could be $200 before you're done with all this. Imagine how many annuals you could get for $200. But it's not about the money, you say. Well, it's a bonding experience too. So the $200 worth of annuals, maybe you guys get especially younger audience. I know I don't have a young demographic that watches this show because you guys are busy doing other stuff. Instead of going on a date night and spending $150, you go together to Home Depot or Lowe's, you get some Alyssum, you get some stuff that we've talked about on the channel, you go home together and plant it, then you put some mulch on it, and you get that sense of accomplishment, and it's something you can sit on the front porch and admire for the rest of the year, versus going on a date night, it's done, and you gotta go again a week and a half later. That's Alyssum. That is one of my 5 plants. The next plant I wanted to talk about was Baby Jim boxwood. It might be a little hard to see now, but this baby series, right, there's Baby Jim and Baby Jade, have very tiny leaves. So it's a different boxwood than what we're used to. It's very consistently has very tiny leaves, and it's a little bit more on the wispy side. It's hardy for my zone. I sold a ton of them when I worked at Site 1. Yeah, zone 5 through 9. So the vast majority of us would be able to grow these. Like any boxwood, they do kind of like the water. So if you're under water restrictions, typically every year, maybe boxwood wouldn't be the way to go. I'm a big fan. So these are gonna get about 4x4, where Baby Jades are gonna get about 3x3, so a foot less. But they all kind of look like the Baby Jade and the Baby Jim both look like this. I like this boxwood. I like the mullet of landscaping. Business up front, party in the back. TM, by the way, the mullet of landscaping is business up front, party in the back. Evergreens up front, a nice evergreen hedge, and then all those beautiful perennials and deciduous shrubs in the back. And then when they go dormant, all you can see from the street is just a nice, pretty hedge. Well, like any evergreen in my zone, I want to keep them out of that cold north wind. And a good way to do that is to protect them with wilt proof. We've talked about that before. Give it a good start so it can bounce back if it does get bit. I have experienced the Baby Jim and the Baby Jades bronze in the winter. So they will bronze in the winter, but I think that's kind of a characteristic that I like. I do like it when they do that, because it gives me a little dynamics. Some people don't like it because they think that the reddish brown is just brown. Hey, my boxwood's dead. Your boxwood's not dead, it's bronzed. So there's a difference between a bronzing boxwood and a dead boxwood. Dead boxwoods are typically light brown. Light brown, almost a grayish color, that scares me, right? If I see my boxwoods doing that, I get worried. I do not get worried when they're bronzed. And this is coming from a guy who lived, ate, breathed, bled, and cried at nursery for the past decade. I don't really worry about them when they're bronzing. So that's the Baby Jade. Nope, that's the Baby Jim, and its cousin is the Baby Jade. Also $24.98. So $25 for what I would consider a 2-gallon. Yes. So this is a 2-gallon. That's pretty much a wholesale price for those. I carried 3s and they were in the 30s, so that's about right. All right, so that's the Baby Jim. His cousin that gets a foot smaller and a foot, so 3x3 is the Baby Jade, 4x4 is the Baby Jim. But you're not going to be disappointed with either one because boxwoods lend themselves very well to pruning. So another one of the plants that will enhance your landscape right now is going to be the Sunny Border Knockout. Now, it's not called the Sunny Border anymore. They've rebranded it to Easy Beezy. You see what they did there? B-E-E-Z-Y. Easy Beezy knockout rose. So this has always been a favorite of mine. I always like this in the knockout series because it actually had a fragrance, right? Where the other knockouts are pretty much inert when it comes to smell. They don't really have a smell to them. These are going to behave like the other knockouts. They're going to get about 3x3, 4x4. I haven't seen them as big as what it says on the tag, right? So they don't really get that big for me. They get about 2x2, 3x3, but don't, that could be my environment, not necessarily yours. A knockout rose, even if it's in this size pot, right, little 2-gallon, is gonna be mid to final tier, right? So the back tier. Probably you could plant this underneath a window, but it would need to be a higher window. The great thing about them is it contrasts so well with purple, and purple is an easy color to find in landscape plants, especially big box stores and places where we actually have access to plants. You can find something purple. Salvia is purple. There's actually an annual salvia over there in like a 3-gallon pot that was pretty impressive, but I didn't want to talk about that one. I feel like we've had enough annuals. This is going to pair really well with a Pugster blue butterfly bush. This would pair really well with salvia. This is going to pair really well with anything that's purple. Maybe the purple fountain grass. This would look pretty. Now that would be more of a prairie style landscape. Whenever you start whenever you start involving grasses, you're getting into prairie stuff. You're that rustic elegance look. So just be aware of that. It's going to make your landscape look a lot less contrived. So if you're going for more of a formal landscape, right? So I like a combination of both, which is what I consider English cottage, where you have hedges and you have like clipped boxwoods and things like that mixed in. You also get to party a little bit with perennials, and you just kind of get to go crazy. You have your formality and then you have your fun. So it's a little bit more on the whimsical side than straight English garden, right? English cottage, French cottage to me is a little bit more whimsical. When you're talking about like country elegance, which is kind of what we do over here in the Ozarks with boulders and things like that, you can do the grasses. But whenever you have a tertiary opposite like purple and yellow, it makes both of them pop. So there's some kind of beat up grasses here, but take a look at that. Oh, can you even see it? This is so hard to do in the shade. Hopefully you get the gist. Or you've been around anything that's purple and yellow and realize what a cool combo that is. There we go. There's some purple and yellow. Yeah. It's cool. It's a good combo. Oh, and there's a Pugster blue butterfly bush right here. So I think a combination of those two, you would have corresponding bloom times, right? So the Pugster blue and the sunny border or easy beezy they're going to pair well with each other because they're going to continuously bloom. Now, I would say a hookarah or a coral bell in combo with that sunny border would be a pretty contrast, but a lot of times I'm using them in completely different environments. Knockout roses will bloom okay in partial sun. They'll do all right. There's other stuff that I could use for that. It's not my go-to. It's one of my go-tos for full sun, but it's not my go-to for partial shade, because you have, panicle hydrangeas are really pretty and those look really good in partial sun also. I'm gonna do 2 more plants. Okay, so I'm kind of breaking my rules here. I'm gonna do another annual, and the annual I want to talk about is Lantana. If you guys are familiar with Lantana, is probably the toughest annual that I can grow in my zone. Lantana is tough. Because it's tough, because it's so pretty, we use a lot of it, especially in areas for people that want to hire a landscaper to come out and do so, and we can already tell they're not going to take care of it. That's when we use a lot of Lantana. So anyway, this is banana lemon zest Lantana. See, this one gets 24 by 24, 36. So it's a big boy when it comes to annuals, and very pretty. It's getting ready. The reason I wanted to talk about it is because it's getting ready to pop. So this would enhance the landscape within a week or two, provided you could keep your warm weather. I'm a little bit not your huckleberry when it comes to, natives and busting my chops constantly about, you know, this cause or that cause. But what I will say about myself is I love bees, and I will find myself just watching bees. So I try to take really good care of them and give them food. I'm like an Italian grandma. You swing by my house, you're getting fed. These are the Daisy May. And Daisy May is one of those proven winner daisies that are supposed to do these amazing things. I first learned about them watching Garden Answers, Laura the Garden Answers. I was really excited. So I ordered a couple of them in a 3-gallon. I went out and I planted them. Or did I get them on clearance? I can't remember. I think I paid full price for them. So anyway, I did pay full price for them. Anyway, long story short, I planted them. They're all gone. The winter's got them, or root rot got them, or something got them. They just got smaller and smaller and smaller every year. And Shasta daisies, you know, Shasta daisies are whiny. They're like a clematis, but instead of coming back and showing you, you don't know what you're talking about. Shasta daisies, I'll show you, I'm gonna die. Shasta daisy, right? So Shasta daisies are not what I would call the toughest plant. These were supposed to bloom 3 times. They were supposed to bloom and then push past their blooms, bloom again, push past the bloom again, bloom again. As it grew, it was going to do 3 flushes, so you didn't have to deadhead it. And so I thought that was really, really cool, and I kind of got really excited. And so I put it probably in the coolest place in my garden, and it couldn't handle the heat. So it is what it is. Guys, I think that's going to do it. There was a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. Probably should have talked less. But as you know, this is Landscape Rescue. I'm Stuart Moore, and thank you very much for letting me into your home to talk about plants.